Well, hello, darlings. It's your favorite mistress of the dark, here to talk about those nasty little pictures that play in your head after dark. I'm talking about nightmares. They're the movies your mind makes when you're not looking, the ones where you're the star. And the monster is always just one step behind you. They feel so real, don't they? Your heart pounds, you sweat, you scream, but no sound comes out. It's a private horror show playing on a loop inside your skull, and you can't change the channel. These midnight movies are more than just bad dreams. They're a visit to a place where logic takes a holiday. A place where your deepest fears put on a costume and dance just for you. We tell ourselves they're not real. We say it's just our brains cleaning out the day's garbage. But what if there's something more? What if the screen in our minds is showing us a trailer for a coming attraction? A sneak peek at a horror that's waiting for us in the waking world? It's a chilling thought, isn't it? That the monster under your bed might just be practicing its lines. Our first story is a real deep dive. It comes from a man named Isaac Fruenthal, a businessman who had a ticket to ride on the grandest ship ever built, the RMS Titanic. A few nights before he was set to sail from Southampton in 1912, Isaac had a dream. It wasn't a pleasant one. He dreamt he was on a huge ship, much like the one he was about to board. The ship was sailing through dark, icy waters. There was a feeling of celebration in the air, but underneath it all, a cold, creeping dread was growing. He felt it in his bones. In his dream, the celebration turned to chaos. There was a sudden, violent shudder that threw people to the deck. He heard the terrible sound of metal screaming as it was torn apart. Then came the screams of the people. He saw the ship tilting, its grand lights flickering and dying as it sank into the black, freezing ocean. He felt the icy water rush over him, pulling him down into the darkness. He saw faces filled with terror, frozen in their final moments. It was a vision of absolute horror, a watery grave for thousands. When Isaac woke up, he was covered in a cold sweat. He didn't know it then, but his nightmare had just saved his life. This next tale is a heartbreaker, darlings. It's about a little girl who saw something no child should ever have to see, first in her dreams, then in reality. This story comes from 1970s California, a time of sun and fun. But for one family, it became a time of unimaginable darkness. A 10-year-old girl whose name has been kept private began having a recurring nightmare. It was the same horrible dream, night after night. It was so vivid, so terrifying, that she would wake up screaming. In her dream, she was in a dark, cramped space. She couldn't move. She could smell the damp earth all around her. It was cold and terrifying. She knew she was underground. She could hear faint, muffled sounds from above. In the dream, she knew her younger brother was there with her, buried alive. Then one day, the nightmare stepped out of her dreams and into her life. Now for a story that's not just one person's nightmare, but a whole town's. This one comes from a small mining village in Wales called Aberfan, surrounded by hills made of coal waste from the local mine, a constant dark presence looming over the village. In the weeks leading up to October 21st, 1966, something strange started happening. People in and around Aberfan started having the same terrible dream. It started with a low rumble, like distant thunder. Then a great black wave, a terrifying avalanche of sludge, would come crashing down the hillside. In the dream, people saw it engulfing the village school. One of the most chilling accounts came from a 10-year-old girl named Errol Mai Jones. A few days before the disaster, she told her mother about a dream she had. "I dreamed I went to school and there was no school there," she said. Something black had come down all over it. On the morning of October 21st, 1966, the nightmare became reality. Sometimes, a nightmare isn't a movie. It's a sound, a voice, a single desperate cry that cuts through the silence of the night. This is a story about a mother's connection to her child, a bond so strong it can cross any distance, even the one between the living and the dead. A woman's son, a young soldier, was stationed thousands of miles away at a U.S. military base. She worried about him constantly. She wrote him letters, she waited for his calls. One night, she was jolted awake from a deep sleep. It wasn't a monster or a falling sensation. It was a voice. His voice. She heard her son cry out, "Mom!" as clearly as if he were in the room. A few days later, a knock at the door. Two soldiers in formal uniforms stood on her porch, faces grim. They said time of death, approximately 2 a.m. It was her son's last word, carried on the wind. A final, desperate call to the first person he had ever loved. Our final tale, My Ghoulish Guests, comes from the glitzy world of Hollywood, where dreams are made for a living. This story is about a filmmaker named David Crossetti, a man who was working on a documentary about life after death. He spent his days interviewing people who'd had near-death experiences, psychics who claimed to speak with spirits, experts on paranormal phenomena. His nights, however, were filled with a recurring and deeply personal horror show. He was, in a way, researching his own death. Every night, David had the same terrifying dream. He was in his own home, in his own bed. He would be awakened by a strange noise. He would get up to investigate. As he walked through the familiar rooms, he felt a presence. He followed it to his living room, and there, he saw him, a shadowy figure, a man with no face, waiting in the darkness. The figure raised a weapon. David felt a searing pain in his chest, then everything went black. On May 11, 2004, his nightly horror film had its premiere. His wife came home to find him dead on their living room floor. David had documented his own death before it even happened. So what are we to make of these little bedtime horror stories? Scientists will tell you that dreams are just the brain's way of processing information. They're a jumble of our memories, anxieties, that extra slice of pizza we ate before bed. They're random, meaningless, and certainly not prophetic. It's all just electrical impulses firing in the dark, creating a chaotic collage of our waking lives. But that explanation feels a little too neat, doesn't it? It doesn't account for the chilling specificity of these stories. It stretches the definition of coincidence until it snaps. Perhaps our brains are like sensitive radio antennas, capable of picking up signals we don't understand. What if time isn't a straight line? What if it's more like a tangled ball of yarn, where the future can sometimes touch the present? Maybe in the unguarded state of sleep, when our logical minds are turned off, we become receptive to these faint echoes from tomorrow. The line between dream world and real world is incredibly thin. It's like a sheer curtain. A breeze from the other side blows it open just enough for a peek. Most of the time we see nonsense, but every now and then we see something real. Every night when you close your eyes, you might be getting a private screening of what's to come. Let's dig a little deeper into this graveyard of ideas. Our subconscious minds are vast, dark oceans. They notice things our conscious minds are too busy to see. But in our dreams, the filter is gone. The subconscious is free to play. It takes all those tiny, overlooked details and weaves them into a story that is often a warning. This idea is what some call intuitive perception. It's not about seeing the future, it's about calculating it. Most of the time, these calculations happen below the surface of our awareness. But in a dream, the subconscious can send up a flare. So the next time you have a nightmare that feels a little too real, don't just dismiss it. Listen to it. Your dream about a car crash might be your subconscious reminding you that your tires are getting bald. A nightmare about a fire might be your brain nagging you to check the batteries in your smoke detector, a part that is always watching, always listening, and always trying to keep you safe. And so, my darlings, we come to the end of our little journey into the dark. We've seen how the fragile screen of sleep can sometimes show us the horrors of the waking world. They remind us that our grasp on reality is tenuous at best. The monster from our dreams steps out from behind the curtain and takes a bow on the stage of our lives. So tonight, when you crawl into bed and pull the covers up to your chin, remember these tales. Sleep tight, darlings, and don't let the reality bites. Unpleasant dreams.